On this week's episode of the Nerf Report, Crafton finds themselves in hot water following the recent delay of Subnautica 2. PlayStation gave us 20 minutes of Ghost of Yotei this week. The FBI has shut down an infamous Nintendo ROM website, and we have to talk about this week's Game of the Week, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. All of this and a whole bunch of nonsense on this week's episode of the Nerf Report.
Are you listening?
Strangers from distant lands and friends of old, you've been summoned to another episode of the Nerf Report. Thank you again for hanging out with me on the weekend while we get the opportunity and the privilege to talk about video games. That is right. It is in the middle of July. It is hot as hell here in the studio in my garage. So if the audio sounds a little weird this week, blame it on the AC unit. That's right. We got cold air pumping in right here. So if my hair looks like it's blowing, if my hair looks like it's flowing in the wind, you don't need to pause it. You don't need to slow down the video. Don't worry. That's a fan blowing on me right now because it is hot as hell in the beautiful city of Austin, Texas. But a lot of the gaming news to talk about this week. A lot of things I want to dive into. But before we do that, I do have a confession to make. I had a mistake that happened this week that I feel like I need to bring to y'all's attention because, again, I admire and I appreciate honesty, and I feel like we all need to maintain that. I fell asleep while gaming this week. I know. Everybody's freaking out though. They're like, what? You did what? And I know that the 10 Commandments of gaming says thou shalt not fall asleep while gaming, but I'm getting old. I'm becoming a gamer dad. My life is becoming so busy during the day that I am falling asleep, so I'll lay the story out real quick so you don't judge me. Playing Death Stranding 1 because I never finished it. Death Stranding 2's out. You're like, why aren't you playing Death Stranding 2? Never finished the first one. So I was like, let's go in, let's finish the first one, then dive into the second one. So I'm playing. I'm walking the sand bridges down the cliff, and I'm like, oh man, this is beautiful graphics. There's a waterfall right there. There's a little brook, and the water was splashing, and the wind was blowing, and the music was going, and I felt it coming, man. My eyes just got heavy. My eyelids began to close, and I knew I was falling asleep, and right there on the couch in my office, I was out. I fell asleep playing a video game, and you know what's the worst part about it? I got woken up by Sam Bridges snoring. So that tells you how long I was out in the game, because I literally woke up to the avatar, Sam Bridges, like the character you're playing in the game, woke me up. So, yeah, take my gamer card, call me out in the comment section. I apologize. I will do better, because you all deserve better. But anyway, before we dive into the games that came out this week, I do want to give a special shout out to everyone listening over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Obviously, if you're watching the video form of this on YouTube or on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or wherever you check it out, thank you for doing so. But a big shout out to the audio files who are like, we don't want to look at your ugly face. We just want to listen to that silky, that smooth voice. We want to play video games during the weekend. We want to put our earbuds in and let the Nerf Report host Brian Chappelle and his silky voice just walk down your ear canals and tickle your eardrums, bringing you the latest gaming news. So thank you to the audiophiles who go out every single week and listen to our show over there. If you're in the car on your way to work, watch out for that guy. He doesn't have his blinker on. I don't want you to get hit. But thank you guys for your continued support over there. If you haven't done so already, definitely follow the Nerf Report on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. Give us a like. But don't you dare bring up the fact that I fell asleep playing video games. All right? Don't put that in the comment section. Because if you do, I will find you. And I will delete your comment. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Big week in the world of gaming. We got a lot of gaming news to talk about, but as we do every single week, let's talk about the games that came out this week for the week of July 7th. And again, ladies and gentlemen, Monday, nothing came out. Gamers hate Mondays. There is never a game that launches on Monday. Tuesday, July 8th, we had a game called Missile Command Delta. Now, this is a turn-based tactics game. It's available for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch. Looks super dope. Definitely check that out. We skipped over Wednesday. There were no games that came out on Wednesday, but that's okay because we had a big Thursday. Thursday, July 10th, we had a game called Myco Punk, which released for PC. Islanders New Shore launched for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Everdeep Aurora launched for PC and the Nintendo Switch. And then EA Sports College Football 2026 launch for PlayStation 5 and Xbox X. We got to talk about this. We got to drop it right now. And if you know what I'm about to say it with me. EA Sports. It's in the game. That was the sound of my childhood, man. Playing Madden, playing NBA, and that was just the sound before all. God, that is like nostalgia in its purest form. Now, you might be thinking that's the game of the week, but it's not, because we got a bigger game that launched this week. Moving on to Friday, July 11th, we had Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. That is this week's game of the week. It launched for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. We're going to be talking about all that you need to know about that game here in a little bit. But then we closed out the week with a little bit of a remix. You got Patapon 1 and 2 Replay. Very cool game. I believe this originally launched for the Vita, but it is now available for PC, PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch. But anyway, those are the games that launched this week. As always, sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you're playing. What did you pick up this week? Did you pick up a new game that launched this week? Something that launched last week? What are you playing? Where are you playing it? How are you playing it? And did we miss any games? Please let us know as always. Now, moving on from the games that launched this week, it's time to talk about the Game of the Week. That's right, skaters, gamers, and anyone else who still remembers pulling off their first 900. It is time to get ready, because this week's Game of the Week is none other than Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. That's right. We're trading in the controllers for skateboards, as one of the most iconic franchises in gaming just dropped its next big refresh, as the remaster of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is finally here. And look, early reviews of this game are extremely glowing. Some people are calling it a love letter to the golden era of skateboarding video games, but just with the right amount of modern polish. Reddit is filled with jaw-dropping tricks and combos, and of course TikTok is blowing up with absolutely insane user-created content that is in this game. Now, before we dive into any of that, we have to talk about the review score. Let's pull it up right now. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 has an 83 on Metacritic, which is really good score for a game like this. I was worried it would get a lower score. I'm happy to see that it got an 83. And then once you start diving into the press reviews, I think this becomes even more impressive. Let's start off with Push Square. Push Square gave Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 an 8 out of 5. GameSpot gave it an 8 out of 5. IGN gave it an 8 out of 5. Game Informer gave it an 8 out of 5. Screen Rant gave it a 9 out of 10. And Gaming Trend gave it an 85 out of 100. And you might be asking, Bryant, what did the Nerf Report give Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4? Well, let me tell you, we didn't get sent a copy. That's right, we didn't get sent a copy. No hard feelings, Activision. I understand you're busy. We got a lot of things going on in this world right now. But I will say, I will be picking up this game. I will be playing it this weekend, and I will post my review score over on social media. Now, before we dive into what's new, let's talk about why this series matter. I mean, let's pull up the trailer, right? Tony Hawk Pro Skater is not just a game. This is something that defined an era. Back in the 90s, this series put skate culture on the map for millions of gamers. You were blending tight mechanics with great music, and some great music is kind of an understatement, because some of the greatest music to ever be featured in a video game were in Tony Hawk video games. When Tony Hawk 3 launched in 2001, it introduced the Revert, which then created these crazy, endless combos that people were posting and talking about and showing to all their friends. Then Tony Hawk 4 in 2002, that expanded everything, because maps got bigger, stories got better, maps got way expanded and super open, and you got brand new objectives added to the game. And then fast forward to today, we get the incredible remake of 1 and 2, and fans like myself say, whoa, that's awesome. But now it's time to give us 3 and 4. Give Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 the exact same love, the exact same treatment that you gave the first ones. And now, 20 years later, since the game's launch, ladies and gentlemen, we are here and the game is out. And look, I know there's people rolling their eyes and being like, oh, it's just a remake. This is not just some quick touch-up of a skateboarding video game. This is a full rebuild in Unreal Engine 5, running in 4K with 60 frames per second. Levels that you remember, like Airport, Suburbia, Canada, Kona, and College, are now bursting with detail and lighting and life. Every trick animation has been completely redone with motion capture from real skaters, adding excellent authenticity to the game. The other thing that's super exciting about this is with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, we are getting a fully upgraded Create a Skater and Create a Park system. It's deeper, it's more flexible, and you can even share your creations online and download parks that your friends create. And some of the parks that people are creating online are incredible. And the characters that people are creating, blowing my mind. I saw somebody on Reddit, and I think it was like a YouTube video. They created Elsa as a skatable character. Literally, the Snow Queen from Frozen is skating through the parks, doing tricks in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. I feel like the community is going to embrace this, and it's going to be wild to see what they accomplish here. And I'm very excited about this. Now, if you're wondering if the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is going to have online multiplayer, good news. It does. Plus, it has full cross-play support. And that kind of is like scratching the itch that I have for like a remake of Tony Hawk Pro Skater Underground right now. Because I remember playing Underground and skating with my friends, and it blew my mind. And it seems like a given for a lot of gamers today that like, oh, it's got multiplayer. Obviously, I can play with my friends. But going back to playing Underground the first time and like you're dropping into a ramp and then your friend literally drops in on the same ramp as you, and it was so magical that I wish I could recapture that moment. And I don't think we ever will, because technology is progressing in such a way that I don't know if we will ever have a magical moment like that, and it kind of makes me sad. Now, as far as the in-game roster goes, it has completely been expanded. Now, obviously, you got legends like Tony Hawk, Bam Margera, Rodney Mullen, and Kareem Campbell, alongside new faces like Lizzie Armanto, Sky Brown, and Zion Wright. And we also know the Doomslayer's in here. I saw Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle dropping in on a half bike. So obviously we're going to have like DLC characters and unlockable characters that come in here. But also, you got Create a Skater. So pretty much anyone can be in this game. I could be put into the game. The first person in the comment section could be put into this game. And honestly, maybe we do that. First person to comment on this video, you're getting put in the game. And then, of course, you have the soundtrack. I mean, we can't talk about a Tony Hawk video game without talking about the music. And this game absolutely nails it. It's keeping the iconic tracks like Ace of Spades, Superman, and When Worlds Collide. But then it also adds like new tracks from people like Run the Jewels, Turnstile, and of course the Hives. And it's like the perfect mix of punk, hip-hop, and metal. And it recreates the magic that game created so many years ago. And I feel like everybody, you could pick a song from this game and be like, yep, I remember playing that as a kid. 100% there. Games like Tony Hawk introduced me to Tricky from Run DMC. The other one that it introduced me to was like School's Out for Summer. I also got introduced to 99 Red Balloons. All of those songs introduced to like in skateboarding, snowboarding, and also like, remember that like Razor Scooter game that came out? Razor Scooter like knocked off the Tony Hawk franchise, and like you were riding scooters and going off ramps and verts, and all I remember was like an unlockable character was like Tito Ortiz. The old school UFC fighter was an unlockable character in the Razor Scooter video game. That's a deep cut if you could ever get one. But anyway, back to the game. Congratulations to Iron Galaxy. Congratulations to Activision. Once again, no hard feelings for not sending us a review copy. I would greatly appreciate one, but hey, congratulations. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 definitely deserves this week's Game of the Week. And if you're ready to drop in, rack up the combos, and maybe even pull off your very first 900, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 is available right now for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, the Nintendo Switch 2, and of course, PC. And moving on from our Game of the Week, let's dive into the world of PlayStation as we've got big news for PlayStation fans. Sucker Punch's latest epic, Ghost of Yotei, got the spotlight this week in an all-new State of Play showcase. That's right, we got an in-depth look at gameplay, story, the cinematic flair, and a brand new special edition of the PlayStation 5. So let's break down everything that you need to know and why it matters. Now, probably the biggest question surrounding this game is what the hell is Ghost of Yotei? Does the character return from the first game? Is this a true sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, or is this a standalone video game? And luckily we got all those answers, because Ghost of Yotei is a standalone sequel to Ghost of Tsushima set 300 years later in 16 1903 on Etso. That's today's Hokkaido. Sony revealed that players will play as Atsu, a Ronin turned Onryo, a legendary vengeful spirit on the quest to hunt down the Yotei 6 outlaws who murdered and killed your family. And it's honestly, for me, not hard to get excited about this video game. Ghost of Tsushima was one of my top 5 PlayStation games of all time. You know, the feeling that I got with this game. You know that feeling when you start a video game and then you can't put it down? And then, like, even when you do have to stop it and you go to work, all you can do is think about it. Like, right, I'm making phone calls, I'm making sales calls, and all I'm thinking about is just slashing as a samurai warrior, riding in, shooting arrows, saving farmers. That's the effect that Ghost of Tsushima had on me. Tsushima got its hooks in me super fast, and I could not put that game down. So I am very excited to see that Sony and Sucker Punch are back with another chapter in this series, and I am absolutely ready to jump back into this world. And look, Sony definitely gave us a lot to talk about with this. I mean, we had over 20 minutes of gameplay footage. The world around you is exactly what you expect from the first game. You're surrounded by a lush, expansive, open world that stops you mid-mission and just absolutely takes your breath away. I mean, I can't count the amount of times that I would be riding into battle and then I'd look over in a field of flowers and opies and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this game is gorgeous. Look at the water hitting the field. Look at the wind going through all the flowers and wheat. This game is so cinematic and it's so beautiful, and I absolutely cannot praise it anymore. Now, Sony also showed off a bunch of new weapons that are coming to this game. You got dual katanas. At one point, Atsu had a spear. She's got a bow. There's also a rifle, so guns are being put into this game, which would make sense 300 years later. So gunpowder and rifles, that would probably be part of this. And I did find it interesting because they made it clear, like, Atsu is not going to be a samurai. They're not going to be a ninja. They're not going to be a ronin. They are a ghost that is seeking vengeance. And that line in itself may have sold me on this game. Also selling me on this game is the fact that there's a wolf. Sony showed that Atsu will befriend a wolf who will accompany you on your journey, which Ghost of Tsushima put me out on a journey and got me super connected to my horse. To the way that, like, if anyone even touched my horse, I would obliterate them and just go scorched earth. And I think the rest of the internet will agree with me, but if you hurt my wolf, I will go Samurai John Wick all over your ass. And of course, we have to talk about cinematic mode, right? They revealed during the stream that Ghost of Yotei will have modes that are designed after famous classic samurai movie directors like Kurosawa mode, which is going to be like black and white, and there's going to be film grade and extra wind in the environment. Miike mode will be like a close-up experience, so it's not as pulled back. It'll be like right into the action. There'll be increased blood. There'll be mud all over the place. It'll just be like a super gritty experience. But then the one that I was like, okay, didn't know I needed that, but I want it, was Watanabe mode, which essentially is like you're playing Ghost of Yotei and they're just putting lo-fi music in the background, which, quit spying on me. I don't know how you knew I was listening to lo-fi while playing this video game, but I greatly appreciate the fact that you added it to this video game. And look, adding lo-fi, adding samurai modes, or adding like cinematic experiences to this game is not necessary, but it does add to the level of experience that just makes me adore this game so much. And after watching this reveal, it's becoming very clear that, like, PlayStation knows what they're good at, and they're damn good at it. Like, they clearly messed up some of the live services games, and I think they will be the first to admit that. But when it comes to single-player games, no one does it better than PlayStation. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima was easily one of the best games for the PlayStation 4, and Yotei dials it up on PlayStation 5. This game looks better than Ghost of Tsushima, and it has the potential to be the best PlayStation 5 exclusive of the PlayStation 5 generation. And speaking of exclusives, obviously this year we already had Death Stranding 2, but we also have Ghost of Yotei. Based off this reveal, I feel like Ghost of Yotei just completely took away Game of the Year conversation from Death Stranding 2. I haven't even played this game, but based off the trailers, I think Ghost of Yotei is going to be Game of the Year for 2025 easily. Unless that Muppet-loving Jeff Keighley rigs the vote and gives it to his buddy Hideo, because then Ghost of Yotei won't win. I'm just future-proofing the video, kids. And look, I think it's clear, watching this reveal got me very hyped about this game. I mean, the biggest downside to this entire reveal was that we are going to have to wait a very long time to get this game, because Ghost of Yotei will be launching on October 2nd of 2025 as a PlayStation 5 exclusive, alongside some pretty sexy PlayStation 5 themed consoles, if I do say so myself. But of course, this is all just my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Sound off in the comment section what you thought about the reveal, and let me know, what style are you going to play? Are you going to do Kurosawa? Are you going to do Miike? Are you going to Watanabe? Or are you just going to play it straight? Sound off in the comments down below. Now enough of Ghost of Yotei. Let's talk about Subnautica 2, because we have some drama in the world of video games to talk about, because this week, fans of the underwater survival video game were shaken by some major drama surrounding Subnautica 2. That's right, a high-stakes tug-of-war broke out between the developer, Unknown Worlds, and publisher, Krafton, involving leadership shakeups, a massive bonus dispute, and now a looming lawsuit. I mean, this is House of Cards level drama. $250 million in bonuses gone. And every time someone opens up their mouth that's involved with this situation, it gets so much more intriguing. Like last week, I would have said the Xbox layoffs and all the shutdowns and canceled video games was going to be the biggest story of 2025. Before that one, I would have said Grand Theft Auto 6 being delayed. Easily the biggest story of 2025. Now, I never would have predicted that Subnautica 2 is bringing the level of drama that we are getting this week. So, let's dive into this. What the hell happened? Originally slated for early access in 2025, Subnautica 2 fans were disappointed to find out that the game had been delayed into 2026. But this was not just another pushback. Behind the scenes, publisher Krafton abruptly removed Unknown World CEO Ted Gill, studio co-founders Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire, and installed new leadership from another studio who was responsible for the Callisto Protocol. Now, according to Krafton, the delay is giving the team more time to improve the quality, add more biomes, and of course, expand the overall story. But the now fired studio CEO Ted Gill, along with the founders Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire, they're going public with a very different story, claiming that the game was ready to go. We were ready to launch the video game, and Krafton came along and was like, whoa, let's delay this game. And they claim that delay was due to the publisher wanting to avoid a $250 million bonus payout that would be awarded to the studio if it launched in 2025. You see, when Krafton acquired Unknown Worlds back in 2021, part of that original deal was a massive $250 million bonus payout set to trigger at the end of 2025 if the game hit its early access targets. The former leadership team claims that by delaying the game past the deadline, Krafton is avoiding paying that bonus, or at least drastically reducing the size of it. And to cement control and ensure that the game doesn't just magically release before the end of the year, they sacked the entire leadership team and replaced it with individuals that will do what Krafton says. Big accusations. A lot of drama in this story, and it's just getting started. So the studio CEO and of course the co-founders, they come out, they say all this. Krafton comes out with their own message. What do they have to say? Well, they argue that the delay was already under discussion before the leadership shakeup, claiming that the game wasn't ready and that the founding team had allegedly abandoned their responsibilities, with Krafton even stating publicly that some founders were working on outside film projects instead of focusing in on Subnautica 2, calling it a breach of their duties to the company. And they also claim that that massive bonus was skewed to favor just the founders rather than the wider team, implying that it was unfair to the developers that are still working hard on the game. And of course, in response to that, Cleveland and the other studio executives came out and they said they were blindsided. The game was ready. It was already on track to launch for 2025, and the leadership change was, quote, a profound betrayal by Krafton. They argued that the bonus was structured to reward everyone in the studio, with some people saying, yo, I was about to get $1 million. before Crafton did this, I was going to get $1 million. And I'm not even an executive. I'm just a developer in this studio because that's what they're saying. Cleveland's like, yo, this bonus was not just for the top brass. This was for everyone in the studio. And now that Crafton is delaying the game, you're delaying it to solely prevent payment, which is unethical and a breach of contract. Just saying, what if $250 million was a mistake? Like, originally it was supposed to be like 2.5 and somebody just put too many zeros and they're looking at the contract and they're like, oh no. Surely no one's going to notice that, right? Yeah, let's just sign that contract. Now, we've heard from the publisher Crafton, we've heard from the former studio executives. The fans have been very interesting to watch here because they've been very vocal, but also very divided. On Reddit, threads quickly racked up thousands of comments, with some players calling for boycotts, removing the game from their wish lists, and urging others to not support any Crafton games moving forward. Others argued, on the other hand, hey, it's not that simple, pointing out that it's not uncommon for a developer to underestimate how much work remains in a video game, and that a delay could ultimately mean a better product. One comment summed it up and said, probably a mix of both, but fans are the ones who are going to suffer here. And like I said, this is a very interesting story. But for me, where I land on this is like, the truth is always kind of the most obvious answer. Like on one side, you got a development team who are like, we're going to make money, and the game was done. We were ready to launch this. And then on the other side, you have a big, giant corporate publishing entity who was going to have to pay out $250 million when every other gaming company right now is doing layoffs and shutting down studios and, of course, tightening their purse strings. Which one do you think is more likely to be lying right now? And look, we've seen this in the NFL, right? NFL teams have purposefully benched players to prevent them from getting their bonus. There's a clip online where Gronk goes up to Brady and he's like, I need one more throw before they bench me because I got to make my bonus. And Brady's like, I got you. He throws it and he gets like $1 million bonus. There are so many teams and so many stories in the NFL where the starting quarterback gets benched because if he plays one more game, they're going to have to pay him like $10 million. They're like, that's not happening. Bench the quarterback. So the idea that Crafton delayed this game to not have to pay out $250 million in bonuses, it's not that hard to imagine as being true. But of course, Subnautica 2 seems to be submerged in uncertainty. You like that one? Submerged. You've got a lawsuit, you got a delay, you got a split between its creators and its owners, and we'll obviously be keeping a very close eye on this story and keeping you up to date as things begin to surface. But in the meantime, I want to hear from you. Do you believe the founders or do you believe Crafton? I'd love to know your opinion on this one because, again, I think it's clear where I stand, but maybe you guys have some differing opinions. Let me know in the comment section down below. And moving from Subnautica, let's talk about the world of Nintendo, because in a move that shocked retro gamers, ROM hoarders, and anyone with a folder labeled totally legal backups.zip, the FBI this week seized a popular Switch emulation site, NSW2U. Yeah, that's right. If you were trying to download the latest Zelda video game and you went to the site and you saw big, scary seizure FBI notification, well, you already know. So let's break this down and let's talk about like what happened. Like, why did Nintendo unleash the feds? Is emulation doomed? Or are pirates just going to be pirates and sail off to the next island? Yo ho, yo ho. Earlier this week, NSW2U, one of the largest Nintendo Switch ROM sites, was taken offline. In its place, a very official-looking notice from the FBI citing violations of U.S. anti-counterfeiting law and cooperation with the Dutch financial crime investigators. And this isn't just like a slap on the wrist, right? This was a full-blown domain seizure authorized by the U.S. District Courts of the Northern District of Georgia. Turns out, Georgia's not just peaches and Chick-fil-A. It's also where video game preservation dies. So depending on how long you've been following this, you might be wondering, like, why did Nintendo go nuclear? Well, the short answer is money, and the even longer answer is money. NSW2U wasn't hosting obscure homebrew games or unreleased demos. It was posting first-party Nintendo titles, sometimes before the official release date. I mean, we're talking full retail Pokemon, Zelda, Mario, free. No questions asked, all served on a silver platter. Which, hearing that out loud, it kind of sounded like an ad read, and as much as Nintendo despises this channel, I feel like we should probably close that out by saying, don't do it. Don't illegally download video games. Yeah, you wouldn't steal a car, so don't steal a video game. Now, from Nintendo's perspective, this isn't just fans preserving culture. This is straight up lost revenue. And let's be real, this is the hill that Nintendo is very happy to die on, because Nintendo has aggressively targeted piracy access on the Switch and the Switch 2 generation. I mean, even recently with the Switch 2, hackers using MIG cards have already reported that their consoles have been completely knocked off the internet, and Nintendo has even threatened to brick your entire console if you do anything questionable that they don't think is right with it. And of course, as far as the online gaming community has been responding, on Reddit and Discord, it's basically awake. Everyone is saying, man, I can't believe this site is dead. RIP NSW2U, gone but never forgotten. Thank God I put those games on my external hard drive that doesn't exist. And my favorite comment, though, on the other hand, was like, FBI is helping Nintendo seize websites and covering up actual crimes, such as the gentleman with the island, the plane, and the client list. I think they're referencing like a C.S. Lewis book. But then again, when you pull out and you dig a little deeper, you gotta realize this is more than just one site, because this was the first time we have seen criminal enforcement at this level, rather than just like a civil lawsuit. That means fines, possible jail time, and even asset forfeiture for whoever was running that website. And I guess where I struggle is like the ethical question to this is like, is emulation bad if the games aren't available anymore? Like, yes, don't take games that are available right now that you can go buy in a store, but if Nintendo refuses to re-release Star Fox 64 in any form, does downloading it really make me a villain if there's no way to purchase it? Is it piracy or is it preservation? I mean, one side of the internet is like, you're stealing. The other side is like, I'm archiving culture. And Nintendo is like, you get a lawsuit, and you get a lawsuit, and you get a lawsuit, and your little sister just bricked your Nintendo Switch 2. As an older gamer, this isn't new. We've seen this before, right? Napster in the 2000s, the Yuzu lawsuit from a couple years ago, and even ROM Universe got completely obliterated and fined millions of dollars. Every few years, the industry like tightens up its leash, and the pirates just swim to another ship. In fact, I think it was Jack Sparrow that said, the sea is vast, and the FBI can't catch every fish. But here's the question I pose to you. Do you think the FBI's takedown of NSW2U was fair? Are they protecting developers, or are they just flexing for a company that's already made billions of dollars? And if games haven't been sold in years, is it wrong to download them? As always, please sound off in the comment section down below. And no, we won't be giving your comments to the feds because YouTube has already done that. With that, my friends, that is it for this week's episode of the Nerf Report. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. It is a pleasure every single weekend to dive into this studio, to sweat it out, talk about video games, and of course, tickle your eardrums. As always, I appreciate all of your support. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next video.